Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupy, Tommy the Satirical Soul Tire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With me tonight is my co-host. I've got JB Whitesnake. Right, John, it's good to see you, mate.
Hello, Peter. How are you doing?
Aye, good, mate. A good wee run of shows we're getting together, mate. It's good to have you back, so it is.
Good show. Nice to see you.
Aye. Right, so we're here. We've got an audience with, and it's a slightly different Tweet Street tonight than there's been. We'll tell you more about that as we go through. But we've got an audience with Pauline Gilgallon. Now, I tried to get Pauline when I noticed this Threehills community thing popping up a wee while back, and I sent a message to them and they never get back to me. They dinged me, mate. You know how it goes sometimes when you've got to ask a lot of people before you get one that'll bite. So they never bought anyway. But thankfully, through an event that I did with Albert Equalities, a poverty panel, Pauline was one of the speakers there, and so I had to do this full research to get a wee introduction. Now, I didn't know half as much about Pauline before I tried to do the wee bit of research, and then I thought, right, well, the best thing to do is ask Pauline how she would like to be introduced, and she gave me a couple of wee pointers, so I put together a wee bit of wording. I'm not going to read it all out, but I'll put it on at the end, right? But this woman is a lassie. I would probably say lassie, but a lot of folk might say woman, whatever you wanted to say, but I would say lassie, right? But she does a lot of work for communities, right? But she's done a lot of work for schools and with the local authorities, right? I can't say, like, now you get people you say, oh, that's real heroes don't wear capes. This is one of them. This is definitely one of them. So without further ado, Pauline, hiya, how you doing?
Hello, thanks for that lovely introduction. I'm hitting a do. Thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you. I'm happy to be here. I don't know if it's a new format. You just keep me right. I just know I'm here tonight to talk about Threehills and what we're doing there and how we came to be and whatever. So. Aye,
well, first things first, right? So I never done the introduction that I done for you on the Alba Equalities event. It was Safeguarding Scotland's Mayors, I think it was, not, wasn't it? It was the one before that. For the Love of Scotland, that's what it was, for the Love of Scotland event. So what we usually do on Tweet Street, and what you would have got on Tweet Street if you'd have just come on, if you'd answered my request before you went on with Alba Equalities to come onto the podcast, would have been, tell us a wee bit about you. So this is your chance to tell us a wee bit about Pauline Gilgallon.
All right, okay. Well, I'm 50 years old. I live in the south side of Glasgow. I've always lived in Glasgow. I'm a mammy of 3. I'm married and I've got 3 dogs, and I am the development officer for Threehills Community Supermarket and the development lead for Good Food Scotland. My background is very, very varied. I've done lots of jobs because in the 80s I was a teenager and I was happy to bounce about in between lots of things, but the first job I settled in was working with the homeless. I started that when I was 19 years old in William Hunter House in Oxford Street, which was the first of its kind because it wasn't a hostel, it wasn't a halfway house, it was a proper building with flats for people to come for the hostels, learn life skills and then get rehoused and then get some aftercare service when they left there. So I done that for 5 years. Then I started my family and I've been a full-time mammy for 20 odd years, but on the side I've done a lot of voluntary work and wee part-time jobs in between. Sat in the Education Appeals Committee in Glasgow City Council, collected a lot of food. I've done a lot of food bank runs early years. I would just put a Facebook post out saying who's going to put bags together for me, and my husband and I would just drive basically all in the west of Scotland, just picking bags of food up and taking them to various food banks that are running low. I've ran an autism support group. I've done that in schools, and then I've done it online because a lot of people weren't able to get childcare to come to it. So then I just started taking phone calls and what have you. I've been an advocate for a lot of kids with autism as well and their parents because unfortunately schools aren't the best equipped to deal with kids on the spectrum, and a lot of parents don't know what their children are entitled to, and they don't really know European Human Rights of the Child was my sort of calling sheet. I know they're saying they've sort of kept their rights in Scotland. My kids are up now and I don't really know much about it now, but it was a really, really big deal for me to be able to use that. But a lot of schools, education departments, they say the words, but they don't actually follow through with actions. And a lot of kids are slipping through nets, and unfortunately they still are. But that's just a bit of my background. I've worked in care services, and now I'm working for an amazing charity called Feeding Britain, and Threehills is our first Scottish project, and I've been in post. It'll be 2 years in August I've been in post. So, aye.
Congratulations. Right, I'm going to write, hold on. So JB, what about that, mate? What about that?
Well, what an introduction, eh?
That's just the start.
You
Right,
shouldn't
so,
have ready, because that's a cracker, but you should have ready. That's a cracker. Absolutely superb.
right, so now you'll get why I said I wasn't wanting to do the introduction, because there's far too, I mean, what Pauline does, it would have you to breath just reading it without actually having to do it. Know what I mean? So Pauline, I need to say thanks again. Like, I know I thanked you when I spoke to you the last time, but for all that you do for the communities you do them for all the different backgrounds that you've came across and tried to learn from and bring forward. And it's people like you that should be celebrated, if you ask me, all day long, because you know how we always get the rubbish news about this you're down the road or that you're down the road, they're up to this, they're up to that. We don't get to tell about Pauline down the road who started doing this and started with this and then moved into that. Then she's trying to help out her community. So I need to say, from my perspective, thank you. How do we get as a nation more Pauline Gilgallons?
Definitely.
This is what I'm doing now is basically connecting people with services that are already there, and that's the big problem. People don't know what's out there, because I'm always banging on about community, but the sense of community has kind of been lost in a lot of areas, and I'm trying to bring that back. So basically, how you get a lot of Pauline Gilgallons is there's lots of people out there like me. There really truly is. There's so many good people in the world, so many good people that are willing to help, that are willing to, whether it's raise funds or spread the word or volunteer. There is hundreds of people even better than me. There's just so many amazing people out there in the world. But really, it's just about letting people know what's out there and bringing the, like, I call it a big jigsaw. All the pieces are all scattered and we need to bring them all together in the one place, because there's so many people, whether they're on universal credit or whether they're working full time, whether they're a social housing tenant or whether they've got a mortgage. Everybody needs help at some point in their life with something. And what we're trying to do with the community supermarket is put as much, we can't be all things to all men. I know that. I'm not trying to do that. Some organisations, they try that and it doesn't, it never works out. So you do the best you can with your resources that you've got. And I've been setting up partnerships with all sorts of different organisations since I came into post. And the good news is, since I last spoke to you, I finally got the lease sorted on my building. So
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. So the main Threehills supermarket, our flagship store, the work should be starting on it within the next couple of weeks. So I can't tell you, it's been such a long time coming. So that's a really fantastic bit of news. But at the moment, we're running the 2 wee pop-up ladders, and I'm also opening up another ladder in Kennishead. And I went on site to visit another ladder somewhere else in Glasgow City. And there's a few other bits outside Glasgow that I'm sort of involved in as well, that I can't talk about because.
Right. Well, let's slow it down a wee bit and let's take your journey. Congratulations, you're 2 years in post, by the way. Congratulations on that. But
Thank
tell
you.
me, you when the journey started, right? Because it was part of Feeding Britain, as you say, right? How did you go for there? Take us through how you went for there to getting the first pop-up ladder or and the agreement for Threehills. So take us on that wee bit of journey if you don't mind.
Aye.
Or big bit
Well,
of
it was
journey,
myself and my
whatever it is.
colleague. Aye. Well, the job that was advertised was development manager, and I went for it, and so did my colleague Kevin. And under wisdom, they split the role between me and Kevin. And Kevin was like the Midas touch at the fundraising and did all the funding and all the official stuff and worked with all the builders and architects. And my job was the partnership and membership and community work. And we worked really well. Kevin's away now because he's done what he could do and he's away back to his other job. But the two split the role. And the first thing we done really was reached out to the community, reached out to the local schools, the NHS, the social work department, the deputy heads of the schools. It's just anybody that's in the community. I reached out and says, hi, we're here. Then it was finding premises. And because it was Chris Stevens MP that brought this project up here, because he is the only MP that sits on Feeding Britain's, the only Scottish MP that sits on Feeding Britain's trustees, I think. I always get that mixed up if it's trustees or, but he's involved, he's the only Scottish MP that's involved. So that's why it's in Glasgow South West. That's not to say that Good Food Scotland, which is Feeding Britain's Scottish branch, we're trying to do this all over Scotland. So it doesn't matter if you've got what kind of MP you've got, wherever it is, Good Food Scotland will come and help you sort of do the same sort of model wherever you're. But that's how we initially started it in Glasgow South West. And we found our premises, and then we hit a lot of brick walls with the premises. Because it was COVID as well, which didn't help. Everything I've done during COVID. Every meeting I've had's been on Zoom. Every connection I've tried to make has been on Zoom. And it's been really, really difficult because face-to-face is so much better, but it's worked. It's been okay. Now, touch wood, hopefully, well, we're not quite coming at the other end, but we're not in lockdown the way we were before. So I'm able to go and meet people now, but it's just about building up partnerships and memberships. And it really actually truly matters that I'm of the community, I'm from the community, because we did have a lot of people at first that were a wee bit Feeding Britain coming into Pollock, would you know about Pollock? So it mattered to people that I was able to say, I'm a Pollock lassie, you know, I'm Ardennes, I've lived in Kennishead, I've lived in Camwardwick, my whole family's for Pollock. This is my neighbourhood, you know, and that really does matter, not just to sort of please people, but because I know the area and I've been dead involved in the area basically my whole life. So I already had a wee bit of a network there, you know, and I was already very involved. But the two wheel ladders came about because we knew we weren't getting into our building anytime soon because of all the hurdles we were hitting. So Kevin and I just put our heads together and thought we need to serve the community in some way. We could see what we were trying to do was so needed. So we just decided at one point we were going to do it at the back of our van. We decided, you know, I was thinking the wee bread roll vans that used to go doing all the schemes. And I'm thinking, you could be like one of them, you know, we were desperate to serve the community and be able to deliver this fantastic model, you know, that we've got. And then I sort of wee light bulb moment. Next to where we're going to be, there's what they call a living well block, it's Weekly Glasgow Housing Association, which is now called Weekly Housing. I've got these things called living well blocks, and these are for people that are over 55. And it's mostly people over 65, to be honest with you, but you can get in if you're over 55. And at the bottom of this high-rise block of flats, they had a sunroom, and it's a big kitchen really, with shelving and a fridge and whatever. So we asked if we could use that through the winter, turn it into a mini larder, and I chatted to all the resident stores and sort of talked nice to them and explained why we were there and whatever. And we've been in there now we were meant to leave at the end of March, but we'll be in there maybe April, May. But we've been in there, I call it the Algins ladder, which I know isn't PC, but I'm in Glasgow and that's what I call them, and I don't mind. So being in the Algins ladder maybe about 7 months now, and the difference it's making to these lovely people that come down, you know, we're opening a Tuesday and a Wednesday there, and it's made such a difference to them, whether it's because they don't need to leave the block to get their messages, or whether it's they just want to come down and have a wee gab, or I'm able to help them with some sort of wraparound service, you know, I'm able to pinpoint them towards another service that they might need because they're maybe talking one day about, I don't know how to do this, or that's not happened, or how do I do this, you know, that's part of it. Threehills is for so much more than food, so we're already doing that. And then the family ladder, which is 2 minutes away from the Algins ladder, that building was gifted to us by a really nice local man called Jim Garrity. that owns quite a few buildings in Pollok and seen the value in what we're doing. And he gave us a really spectacular unit free of charge just to run another pop-up for families. So that's the family ladder that we've got nappies, baby food, just a lot more variety in it because it is for families in there. And we also do the fuel vouchers as well now from both ladders, but they're only temporary until the big place opens up. So, aye.
Well, before we get to that, JB, what do you make of that? Like,
Absolutely spectacular. I just wish it could be mirrored in so many more places. It's superb, Peter.
aye, it is. Is there anything for what Pauline said that you want to ask on anything?
Yeah, I'd like to ask her for an overview of the cost of living crisis. What are people actually telling you where you're working at the moment? What are they coming to you and saying what their worries and fears are?
It was bad when we started it, and I'm obviously going to tell you it's getting worse. There's a lot of stories I'm hearing from people that are quite disturbing, heartbreaking, and you know, we are able to help these people, thank goodness, because I've got all these partnerships and people working ways in place. But desperate times. I mean, I was in a Zoom meeting today with the rest of the Feeding Britain network, and somebody down in Bradford was talking about there was some kids in a school down there were all taken really no well, and it was because this, I don't know if this family had a party or something, I don't know, but the woman didn't have a fridge that worked, and she was serving up food that hadn't been refrigerated right, and this wee group of kids got seriously ill, and this was because the woman's fridge broke and she couldn't repair it, and just stories like that. I'm hearing stories like that all the time. What's really concerning is in the last 6-7 weeks, I'm attending meetings where I'm hearing people like me worrying and saying they might have to go for operating 3 days a week to 2 days a week, or their fuel bank vouchers are running out in 3 months instead of 6 months. It's grim. It's really, really grim. And it's grim for your average man and woman on the street and your average Wayne in the street. But when I'm seeing people like me going to meetings that are seriously concerned and reaching out for help, and the food supply is terrible. The food supply has been impacted by the war in Ukraine. Brexit's impacted the food supply terrible. And there's a lot of big food suppliers out there that, you know, before COVID were doing okay, you know, but then the COVID pandemic hit and a lot of well-meaning people decided to, you know, open up food banks, which was great, but it's impacted terribly on these food providers. And a lot of them have folded now, but a lot of them haven't because they can't fold because of all this cost of living crisis stuff that's come in. So it's worse than it's ever been. I don't even know what else to say. We are doing all we can with regards to encouraging people in different ways to try different things. Like, for example, next week we're going to start encouraging people to open up a credit union account, put a wee bit away, and food waste, surplus food, how to manage that, how to utilise that. But that's really difficult if you don't have a cafe to prepare food or you don't have a kitchen. And a lot of these wee food banks that are set up in libraries and community centres, they don't have they fast freezers, they don't have big fridges, they don't have walk-in free, they don't have the facilities. So the food waste is really, really diabolical as well. It could be addressed, it could be made better, but the funding that, I'm going to try and get this right, the funding that the government give to farmers and food suppliers to get the food waste from them to organisations like mine has been totally cut. It's just gone. And Chris Stevens spoke about it, asked Boris Johnson about it just last week in Westminster, asked him to his face, what are you going to do about that? And I'm sure you're no surprised to hear that Boris didn't have an answer and just told Chris he'd send him a letter. But this is where we're at. It's worse than you could possibly imagine.
Right.
Terrible.
So, given that, well, I can imagine that the Egypt and Prime Minister wouldn't be able to answer much.
I don't mind. I think my theory is I've got a brilliant new strategy, which is to make so many gaffes that nobody knows which one to concentrate on.
So they cease to be newsworthy.
They cease to be newsworthy. You completely outgeneral the media in that way, and they despair. They despair, and so what you do, they leave you alone. You shell them, you pepper the media. What you do is you got to pepper their positions with so many gaffes that they're confused. It's like chaff, it's like a helicopter throwing out chaff. and then you steal on quietly and drop your depth charges wherever you want to drop them.
To be perfectly honest, but given that, what can people do within their own communities to try and help out? What's the sort of things that you would recommend? Because you say you've got a lot of connections with like wraparound services and things like that. But just for a standard person that's maybe able to contribute, how can they contribute? What can we do?
Well, when it comes to food, there is a lot of surplus food out there that people aren't even aware of, and for all different kinds of places. Like you've got caterers, for example, caterers that do big gigs. They actually bin a lot of their food if it's no collected or eaten on the day. You know, they've got the space for it. They don't want to take it back to their warehouse. It gets binned. There's an app called Olio. I don't know if anybody's heard of Olio. It's an app where a lot of food surplus goes, and there's a lot of people, just your ordinary average Joe, is on Olio now, because you can pick up a crate of carrots or a crate of turnips, and then you split that crate and you'll maybe trade that with somebody else for apples or, I don't know, mince or whatever. No mince, you don't get fresh meat, but that's an app that a lot of people are using. But if I was to suggest, if anybody wanted to do something similar to what we're doing that didn't have a lot of funding, I would say get in touch with your local MP's office, tell them what you're trying to do, and your MSP and your councillors. The elected officials need to be made aware that this is happening, because it's great we're doing all this, but they shouldn't be let off the hook. You know what I mean? We're not there to do this because they're not doing it. They shouldn't be let off the hook. So you go to them first and you say, this is what's needed in my community, and I'm letting you know it's there. I'm very, very lucky with my MPs. He's fantastic. He's dead supportive. And I think any MP probably would be if you went to them and says, I'm going to do this, because they will be able to help you form your partnership. Obviously, you reach out to other people in the community, people that work in schools, because schools are a great referral for you, because we will take people that just walk in, but obviously the schools and the nurseries know best who's going to benefit from what we're offering, you know. So you talk to your schools, your health services, your local libraries, your social work departments. You just talk to them on, you just say, listen, you need a space. Sorry, first and foremost, you do need a space. But there's a lot of social housing that shut down a lot of their wee offices and their wee spaces when COVID hit, that haven't opened back up again. So I would suggest people sort of look into that, your local housing authority, and just say to them, do you have a space? And most of them do. They really do, because a lot of charities and local enterprises use spaces like that, but a lot of them have shut because of COVID. Some of them are now working from home and happy to work from home, and these spaces just are not being utilised now. So get a space first, approach your elected officials, tell them what you're doing, and then just try to create a Facebook page, whatever, try and get the word out. And then just what I'd done was I reached out to absolutely everybody and said, we're here, this is what we're doing. And with regards to food, you can get on Neighbourly, you can contact, you can do the Olio thing, and just go chapping people's doors. There's different organisations, you can email them or you can phone them, and some of them are better that you're better just walking in. And I can't tell you what's what, because I could say, oh, the co-op's great for just walking in. And then somebody else might say, oh, I just phoned them and they were fantastic. It depends individually on who's running each branch. Right. You've also got your community champions and your supermarkets who are spectacular. I've got such a great relationship with them. Every supermarket has got a community champion, they're called, and these people get a budget every month for the supermarket they work in. They're supermarket workers, and maybe 20 hours a week they're dedicating to their community work. And they're called community champions, and they're very good at phoning you up and saying, we've got a mountain of carrots here, we've got so many nappies, or, you know, like for example, we're doing an Easter egg walkabout. We've done the Santa walkabout on Christmas Eve, and we're doing an Easter bunny one, and Tesco were giving us 500 Easter eggs for free, just because it's good for the community. And do you know what I mean? So the community champions, that's something else I would say. Get in touch with your local supermarket, but just, it really is about talking to people and reaching out to people and just telling them what you're doing and asking them how they can help.
Right, well, that's a good link actually about talking to people, because we've got a slightly different tweet street today than we've done before, JB, because we've got a small audience with us today. So Pauline's link to talking to people. Let's ask if there's anybody in the audience would like to ask a question of what they've heard so far. There we go. And yeah, just unmute whenever you're ready and fire away. You can say your name if you wish, or you can go anonymous. It's up to you.
Thank you very much. It's Eva Comrie. Pauline, I absolutely take my hat off to you. You are 1 in a billion. That said, I want to know if you believe, given what you've seen, obviously in your lifetime in various different guises, but particularly in the last couple of years with your current project, do you think that poverty in Scotland is in fact able to be eradicated? And if so, how do you think that would be achieved?
That's a really good question. 90% of the time, I don't feel it could be eradicated because I see so much despair and I see so much brick walls in front of me. But 10% of the time, I'm going to say I do think it could be, actually, because there is resources out there that are able to deal with it, and there is people out there that are willing to work to make things better. But we just need the goodwill, and we need the funding, and we need the, I don't know, training, and again, communication. But until the government do, but I mean, taking away the people's the £20 universal credit, that was just, it's, I could go on and on about this Tory government, but I might end up saying sweary words, so I will in a bit.
I'm not sure I can tweet any of this.
It's very much a government. They could make so many changes, but as far as the work I'm doing, I believe that I don't think it could be eradicated. Or see, I'm all over the place. I just see so many things that I think, you know, if you could only, and if I could only, I think our model is, you don't just come to us for food, you come to us for all sorts of things. You come to us for employability, you come to us for volunteer work, for training, for help with your budgeting, your finances. Threehills is going to be doing all that, and my hope is that after, it's a yearly membership at a time, and my hope is that because we're offering much more than food, we're addressing the underlying causes behind poverty, we will be able to send lots of people at the other end of the Threehills system back into normal life, going to a normal supermarket, whatever that is, and getting employment, and, you know, maybe better mental health and whatever, with the support that we're going to be able to offer them, because there's so many agencies we're working with. But I'll tell you something, we could be doing a lot better than we are already. There's the best answer. That's the best answer I can give you. We could be doing a hell of a lot better than we are already. There's so many people out there that are just, the doors, I've chapped a lot of doors, and the amount of audience that don't even know fuel vouchers exist, and think that you need to be on the DSS to get help. They just, a lot of these old souls are living in the 80s and the 90s. They don't have social media. They don't know. People need to go and tell people, this is actually what you're entitled to. I'm sure everybody here knows about the unclaimed benefits that don't get claimed by people. It's very similar when you talk to them about, did you know you can speak to him about this or them about that, or I can put you in touch with it, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. So the good news is a lot of stuff's already in place to help people. The bad news is nobody's telling anybody. There's no connectors out there, if you like. That's, but it could be fixed, Eva, if there was a lot more people doing this. Absolutely. Aye.
Eva, you want to come back in on that?
Oh yes, please. If it was decided that the right thing for Scotland was what we would call a national government, which would be a government of all the talents, where all the ministerial positions are taken by people with knowledge of the area that they've got responsibility for, I would make you, the minister, absolutely in charge of addressing poverty. So if that happened, which I hope it does, And I don't believe that's pie in the sky, because I think there's a lot going on in Scotland now, and there's a lot going to be happening soon. If you were the minister with that job, what would be the first 3 steps that you would take to address poverty, with particular reference to what you refer to as connectors? Because I think people need to know what your advice as somebody with this experience actually is. Thanks, Paul.
Well, that's a big question. I suppose if I was to suggest 3 steps, it would be, we need to bring back community. I keep talking about it, but we need to bring back, people need to know that people are there to help, because I've been quite shocked at how much is actually out there. And then I've been even further shocked by the amount of people that don't know it's there. So I suppose that sense of community that's been lost, all the community centres are gone. There's nowhere for people to go anywhere and sort of gather and stuff like that. The next thing is I would be pushing for more community supermarkets, because we do so much good in communities, and it's not just, and we eradicate food waste as well, but for a gathering space for people to come to and shop cheaply and meet other people and get their wraparound service, a one-stop shop. That, you know, maybe that's number 1 on my list, I don't know. It's a big question. Training a lot of people, even people, I mean, I've got people that are going to come and volunteer with us that are so excited to learn new things, that are so excited to be able to, like, for example, we've got Money Matters coming to us twice a week, and we're going to be training volunteers to help the Money Matters people with the PIP forms, the DLA forms. And I think probably my third answer would be, like, give people a chance, give people trust in people, and give them a chance and show them that you believe in them and they're capable of, people are capable of so much. I mean, I have got volunteers in Threehills that would just blow your mind. See, I mean, if I brought some of the lasses on here and they told you the work they're doing, these are volunteers, it would absolutely blow you away. So I think put trust in people, train people, more community supermarkets, and really push for communities again. And forget social media. We need to be champing at people's doors. We need to connect, especially elderly people and people that can't read and write. There's a big thing about that as well. Nobody really talks about it. There's a lot of people that can't even read stuff, even if they've got the Facebook or the Instagram. I'm setting up the credit union sign-ups, and I'm very aware that I've spoke to a few people that want to be part of the credit union, and without telling me, I know the struggle to fill in the form. So the credit union, bless their hearts, have made it a really simple process for me. I'm saying bless their hearts have made it simple for me, because I'll be the one helping people, because to join a credit union is quite a lengthy process. But Paul at Credit Union are making it very straightforward. A utility bill, name, address, email, and then I take a photograph of the person, and as long as I can verify they're who they say they are, they're in. And it's all these sort of things. If you talk to big organisations like the credit union or whatever, they want to help. It's just there's nobody out there saying to them, hey, I've got this idea, do you want to give us honours? But when you go to them, people genuinely do want to help. So
that's a good answer, actually. I mean, if you were the Minister for Poverty, it's a good way to start. JB, have you got anything you would like to ask on what we've heard so far?
I'd like to say to Eva, it's, if you think, just looking at the bigger picture, like poverty is man-made, and to me it goes back to David Cameron. He didn't only give us Brexit, he also gave us, if you remember right, what he called the big society, I think it was, and that's where he basically abandoned masses of people at charity's door. So that was their idea, to cut benefits, and charity will look after everyone, and that's a criminal thing, that, to my mind, that these people have done. They've plunged people into poverty, and now they're relying on indifference, ignorance, and apathy to get away with it. And we should never, it's great, all this wonderful work that's being done, but we should never let people forget this is a choice, this is an ideology that's been forced on people. And maybe a lot of people are in such a situation, don't think outside the box, that this is a decision that's being made by the British government, and they rely on ignorance, apathy, and indifference, as I keep saying. What's your thoughts on that?
Eva?
I agree wholeheartedly with you. You'll not be surprised to hear. And what really upsets me is I've been working for 40 years in Clackmannanshire, and the poverty figures here now are in some areas probably worse than they were 40 years ago. I can't understand why that should be. We have several food banks in this county. The population is only about 52,000. There's a food bank in the town where I have grown up, and it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely fantastic, as we've already said, that people are doing this work. And, you know, Pauline is in effect doing the government's job for them.
Yeah.
And good on her that she is. But I think that in Scotland particularly, we need to be very conscious that we've got a devolved government who are not tackling poverty the way that they ought to. So it's very easy to blame the Tories. That's a Scottish thing to do, and it's a very accurate thing to do. But we need to be looking closer to home at Holyrood, and also at the behaviour of individual local authorities. They could do lots of things like provide free school meals for more than the primary 1 to primary 5 that most of them are doing at the moment. They could be making, for example, bigger projects like gardens and public gardens and community gardens and allotments and that sort of stuff. There could be almost like battalions or armies of grannies and aunties who are trained, as Pauline referred to training, trained to be in effect kind of home helps and teachers to teach parents how to grow food, how to cook food, how to not waste food. But all of that requires a mindset, and you have to be very proactive. And we don't seem to have that with terribly many politicians. What we've got instead are targets. And I know that within the last couple of weeks, there was some announcement about reducing the number of children that live in poverty in Scotland, and it's a reducing figure over a number of years. The target's not zero. The target is that, sorry about my dog there, but we're supposed to try to take something like 16,000 children out of poverty this year, and we'll take another 20,000 out of poverty next year, and another 25 the year after that. And I'm thinking to myself, why the heck is the absolute goal right now not have zero people in poverty? We know that's probably not attainable, but by God, if you didn't aim for the sun, you're not going to land on the stars. So I wish that we had people in government like Pauline, because if we did, we would make a massive difference to so many more people. And that's a government's responsibility. So yeah, it's great that Pauline's doing what she's doing. It's just so sad that in effect, governments at all levels are helping Pauline and folk like her on a piecemeal basis, as opposed to dramatically and drastically and radically tackling these things.
Thanks very much, Eva. We've got another question for Big Andy McCall. So Andy, if you just unmute.
Thanks, Peter. So Pauline, I just wanted to ask you, I'm basically echoing what everyone else is saying, what you're doing is fantastic. The question I wanted to ask you was, what kind of support or even funds do you get from central government in Scotland, local government, MPs, MEPs, councillors? Do you get support for these people? We're coming back to election time. That's why that question is in the front of my mind.
That's a question I get asked quite often, Andy. Up until very recently, all our funding came from private funders. It came from trust funds. I've written a list actually. The Dulverton Trust, the Robertson Trust, the Bardi Foundation, Suter Trust, the Co-op Foundation, the Tudor Trust, and just recently Glasgow City Council gave us nearly £250,000 actually to get us into our building and get the work done in it by something through the Place Fund. But up until just like 2 months ago, I used to be able to say we've no government funding, we've done it all. But I'm very grateful that we got that money. But when you apply like for example, the Tudor Trust gave us £100,000, which is really quite high for the Tudor Trust. But what I'm really trying to get across there to everybody that is interested is when you go to trust funds and private funders and you tell them about this model, they appreciate the need to move away from food banks. And they also appreciated the fact that I was in the community, because with that particular, I'm quite proud of this actually, the Tudor Trust, my colleague done the application and I think they were giving us 40 or 50 grand, which was fantastic. And then I went on a wee Zoom meeting, and after they spoke to me and heard how I was for the community and asked me a bit about my background, they actually says to my colleague, we're giving you another 50 grand because we want to make sure she's staying in the place for her, keep her on for another 3 years. And because, and that's no anything personal, that's just because I'm just a normal Glaswegian person in the community, and they appreciate that. And I'm finding that more and more, that the more sort of people you talk to, I talk like this in meetings. I don't go into meetings and speak like that. I'm just me. And that I'm finding is more and more appreciated by people, which is such a good thing. They want real people doing real work. I think people have had enough of the corporate speak and enough of the, it sounds terrible to say it because God bless them, but there's a lot of people out there doing this kind of work because, you know, they're looking for something today, you know. But there's also a lot of people like me that are genuinely passionate about it. And a lot of these funders, I think, are appreciating that. Plus the model that Threehills is putting forward is so progressive and so new and so nearly swore. So blimmin' fantastic. I'm no swearing on a video, you joking? Oh, I'll swear in private.
we date regulars, don't worry.
I know. But it's such a fantastic model because, I mean, one of our hashtags is much more than food. Food is a hook. Food is a hook. Food is what's going to get people to come through the door. The cafe is going to get them to stay. And that's when we can go and say, how you doing? What can we help you with? Where do you stay? What do you need? Do you know you're entitled to? Blah, 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 blah. And then we'll move them forward with other things. We'll give them training. We're having classes and all sorts of things going on. And that's what makes it so much better. And we're giving them dignity and we're giving them choice. And I think I said this at our last meeting, the inside of Threehills is going to look like such a high class establishment. It's going to be so beautiful inside. People are going to walk around it and they're going to feel like, and this, look at where I'm doing, getting my messages now. It's going to look so lovely because I think I show up in Lidl and Aldi. I've got nothing against Lidl and Aldi, but I just want it to look really, I want people to walk in and feel like, God, this is just for me. This is really nice. And I enjoy coming here and doing my shopping, and I enjoy getting half price in the wee cafe and treating myself to a fancy coffee. And the mental health benefits that are coming even for the cafe when I talk to people is phenomenal. And I've actually pushed to buy full doors. I don't know if I'm getting them yet. I'll find out the next couple of weeks. The side of the building when I buy full doors, the sun shines right on you, and I'm like, wee mini buyers road, please, thank you very much. Let's throw the doors open when the sun's shining. Let people sit outside with their coffees and their muffins. You know what I mean? Why not make the most of it with the sun? A lot of people don't have gardens. A lot of people don't have these open spaces. So I'm about to bring a wee bit of that to them as well, you know. So I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted.
You can maybe get some, Pauline, you can maybe get some photographs and that put up.
I will.
Yeah, and even you get them to Peter that, we can put them on, Peter can put them in Tweet Street and that, and here's what's happening, and maybe inspire even other folk to try and do a fraction of what you're doing would be a success as well.
Thank you. I'll send pictures. I've got pictures of the inside of the building, but I'm not showing anybody yet because I want to do a before and after thing, but I'll keep you posted.
So you got to give us a wee exclusive because you've been teasing us about this building before we started, right? So, right, come on.
Right, you want me, well, I'll tell you about it, right?
Aye.
It's at 409 Nitshill Roads in the south side of Glasgow. It's in Greater Pollock, and it's in the side of Pollock that really doesn't have a lot going on in it.
Right.
Pollock's got a lot of stuff going on in it, which is wonderful because we need it. But South Nitshill's not really got much, so I'm sort of more than chuffed that this is where it's happening. It is 4,000 square feet. When you go in, it's a big space. When you go in the doors, it's a cafe and it's going to have covers for 30 people. We're going to have 4 booths and the rest is going to be tables. And the booths are for 2 reasons. A, I like a booth. And B, I don't want people to feel as though if they want to chat, they need to go into a wee separate room because that can make people feel a wee bit, oh, what are you taking in here for? So the booths are a bit more private. And that's where a lot of chats will be happening. Plus, there'll be a lot of people coming in for organisations like Money Matters or the Citizens Advice or the Credit Union, and they might not be able to get into the community room, so there's going to be booths there. Anybody can use a cafe, but if you're a member of Threehills, you get half price in the cafe. So I'm going to be Birkenhead's Cafe, which I visited last week, which we're trying to emulate. Number 7, it's called in Birkenhead, if you want to Google it. That's Feeding Britain's sort of flagship community supermarket. Their cooked breakfasts are £4.50, but if you're a member of the supermarket, you get a big full cooked breakfast for £2.25. They do porridge as well, they do scrambled eggs, they do all nice healthy stuff as well. But Aye, so that's a cafe, anybody can use that. And then you cut through the cafe and the supermarket's on the other side. And you need to be a member to get into the supermarket. As much as I would love to say, come one, come all, we really need to limit our numbers or we'll run out of food. And that's people will come in there and do their shopping. And it's going to probably be about the size of a Tesco Metro or slightly smaller than a wee Tesco Metro in the high street, something like that. Or if you think you're like a Shell or a BP garage, maybe twice the size of one of their shops, that's the sort of size the supermarket's going to be. And then something I'm really excited about is that the warehouse space. We're going to have a massive big warehouse space with a walk-in freezer. And the reason I'm excited about having a big warehouse is there's a lot of food banks, community food groups, affordable food groups that are doing sterling work. And then they'll get a big, somebody will phone and say, I've got 10 pallets of cornflakes here. Do you want them? And they have to say no because they don't have space. So we have planned for a really big warehouse space because we want to be a distribution centre for other food groups in the community. We're not charging them. Somebody says to me, oh, you're just like fair share. And I'm like, no, we're not charging it. It's not like that. We'll be getting it for nothing. So we'll be using some in the supermarket. If we can use some in the cafe, we will. And whatever is left over, we'll be giving to the other local food groups. Because like a lot of places now, there's quite a lot of local food groups in about here. So we aim to be a wee kind of like mini distribution centre as well. And I'm really, really excited about that because nobody's got space for anything. And because we're part of the Feeding Britain network, our network's actually really quite big and just growing. I sound excited that it's growing. It's quite sad that it's growing into it really when you think about what we're actually doing, but it is growing and it's quite, I've just actually secured a fantastic deal with Warburton's to get fresh bread and fruit scones and crumpets, and that was not easy to do. But I've done it and I'm so proud of that, and I'm in the middle of working and trying to get something with Kellogg's. So my Feeding Britain connections, I mean, it all works. The Threehills connections work, the reputation's getting built every day. But like I says, I wrote stuff down and I've not even said half yet. Who I work with.
Right,
I think I've touched on a lot yet. We've got a van.
We'll get to that. Right, now, the one thing I wanted to say to you was I agree with what you'd said, that it's enthusiasm. I can hear the enthusiasm come through in the way you're describing it. It's not that you're excited that it's grown, because obviously we want it to be, we'll not want it to be grown. We're want to be doing the best that we can. And people like yourself, Pauline, community champions, and I mean, you've spoke a wee bit about Threehills. Tell us about the Good Food Scotland side, how it connects together.
Well, Good Food Scotland came about because when I came into post and I started reaching out to people and talking about Threehills, people started hearing about this new model that was happening. So I started getting phone calls for Destiny Church or somebody in East Renfrewshire Council, or I got a phone call for somebody in Aberdeen once because they'd looked online. There was an article about us in Glasgow Live. And it got people's attention, this new sort of model that was happening. So I started speaking to people and saying, did you know you can do this, you can do that? And I think a lot of people think that when you're doing work like this, you need to have a Fair Share membership, and Fair Share do great work, and a lot of people have got memberships. I've never had a Fair Share membership. I'm still on the waiting list, and that's me going back to how difficult it is for Fair Share with the COVID pandemic hitting, and they've struggled to supply, and I'm still on the waiting list, and fingers crossed I get a membership one day. But I get my supplies for other places. I go to his church, they're all down south. I go to his church, I go to Excess bread and butter thing. Morrison's will do collections for me. Schools and churches do collections and stuff for you, so that's a big help. But Good Food Scotland came about because so many people were saying to me, what is that, how can we do that, etc, etc. So I would start to say to people, I work for Feeding Britain, and then I spoke to my boss, and my boss and I agreed together that we should set up a Scottish version of Feeding Britain. So it's called Good Food Scotland because we do good and we do food and we're in Scotland. And a lot of people think a lot of people follow the Instagram page and think that we're chefs and stuff. It's quite embarrassing. I get a lot of cooks in restaurants following me, and I want to say to them, that's not what you think it is, but it's done now. But that's how Good Food Scotland came about, because I was getting so many inquiries for people saying, how can we do that? We want to do that. So what Good Food Scotland basically does is what Feeding Britain does, and that is help projects that are already up and running. There's a lot of food banks that want to change the model and become like a Larder and start charging people that tiny amount and give them back their dignity, give them back a bit of choice. Sorry, I was looking at the chat there.
Right.
Was that? Oh, sorry, I'll answer that in a minute, Andy. So that's how Good Food Scotland came about, because everybody was asking me, how do I do this? How do I do that? So it's basically Good Food Scotland's Feeding Britain's wee sister.
Right.
And I'm already setting up another Larder with weekly housing in Kennishead, and that should be up and running within the next 6 weeks. I'm still trying to source culturally, I hate saying this expression because it's a tongue twister for me, culturally appropriate food.
Right.
I say that I'm still trying to source that. I'm finding that quite difficult, to be honest, but I will get there, because there's a lot of asylum seekers and refugees in this new place where I'm going. So I want to be able to cover for everybody, because you can't beat a wee bit of food for home, you know. And when you're so far for home, I really want to be able to say, do you know what, here's something that's going to remind you where, you know, your mammy's cooking or your granny's cooking or whatever. But it's important I get that food, because they're not going to want to eat all the stuff we eat. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's happening in the next 6 weeks. That's a Good Food Scotland project. And I was on site yesterday at another place that wants another Good Food Scotland Larder in it, and possibly a cafe, and it could turn into another wee Threehills. So I'm just basically all over the place. But I had a network meeting, Good Food Scotland network meeting today, and I have the meetings because when I find stuff out, I want people to know. I want to say to people, do you know you can do this? Do you know you can do that? I met so-and-so, and you should meet so-and-so and talk to so-and-so. And it's just about sharing the knowledge and sharing the experiences and learning from each other, you know. And the mobile food thing, I've not got anything like that in Scotland yet, but I've got a lot of knowledge about mobile food Larders that are going to be going into rural areas as well. There's a few of them in England, and I go to their meetings even though I've not got one, because I want to learn all about it, because there will be eventually some Good Food Scotland wee vans jumping in and out of the countryside in Scotland eventually, so I want to learn about that as well. So
right, so as a project then, what sort of, I know that you'd said where you'd set up, it was the old place, or whatever it was you'd termed it, because they were, most of them were over.
Oh, the Olgins.
Aye, the Olgins, right. But what sort of people have you got coming to use the service? Is it families? Is it older-uns? What's your demographic, or your main demographic?
Our main initially was the Aldergins, because I was only opening that place at first. I didn't open the Family Larder until 3 months after the Aldergins place. But now the two that were open, I get everybody. But I do see a lot of older people. I don't really see anybody in between. A lot of young people. There's quite a few nurses come to us. How shameful is that? It's quite a few nurses come into the Family Larder. But a lot of older people. But I'm just thinking probably just about everybody really. There's a lot of people come in to buy nappies and stuff for the lassie that doesn't live in the area. A lot of people think, oh, she can't come here. So that you get a lot of that happening, because they appreciate, oh, this is a right good wee deal, you know.
Aye.
And again, this just makes sense why we should be doing this everywhere. Because I mean, I've had people signing up. Our postcode area is G53. And I've had people signing up for ML4, which is, I think it's Motherwell, or I've got people trying to sign up to come and shop with us that don't even live in Glasgow. You know, there's quite a few postcodes come through, and I'm just like, and I'll either give them a wee phone call, or I'll email them and I'll point out, you know, where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gutting when they realise they can't get to you. It's desperately sad, because they've been quite excited, because I'll always send a wee email out with photos and all that, or singing, oh, this is what we are, this is what we do, you're very welcome, this is your Larder. And then I've had to tell a few people, I don't tell them not to come, by the way, I tell them if you can get here, get here.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them can't get to us. And that's heartbreaking, you know, that's heartbreaking.
It must be one of the downsides to it.
Mm-hmm.
what size of community have you got? Like, when I say community, I'm talking about the Threehills community. What size of operation is it you've got working with you? Is it just yourself, or have you got other people?
It's we've got a supermarket manager, Leslie, who's terrific. She's been in post for 4 months, but it's me and Leslie. Aye, and we've got our volunteers that come in and help in the supermarket. But I'm the development lead for everything, so I'm it basically at the moment.
For set up, well, if we go through just the short history that you've shared with us, for all the things that you've got involved in, for all the good that you've done for the communities that you've tried to get yourself involved in, and you've just like been a snowball at the top of a hill, really. For a young age, you're still at a young age, but you're picking up momentum, and you're not letting anything go. You're just like collecting everything that you've took, everything that you've learned, and try to put it into, as you said, that one-stop shop that caters for absolutely everybody. You've got a heart of gold. Yeah, like the fact that the way you speak about people that can't make it to you, and but I wish we could bottle people like you up, Pauline, and that's the blueprint. That's what we need. We need all of these people like this to make this country a success and to make it more tolerable for everybody. Do you get
There's hundreds of me out there. There is hundreds of me out there. I've met them.
I know you've
There's
said
hundreds.
that, right? I know that you've said that, and you've already got that community, right? So you're already grown with that community, and you've went from a larder to 4 to the community supermarket opening up. You've got all these connections with a continued supply to try and maintain the good work that you've already, the great foundation that you've already set up yourself, so that you can build on that. And it's like there's no enough words, there's no enough good words for people like you. It's one of the ones where you kind of swallow your pride a wee bit and go, fuck's sake, I could be doing a wee bit more. I mean, I could be doing a wee bit more. Like when you've got lasses like yourself out doing what you're doing for the number of years that you've done it. Because there's something that you said when I was introducing you the last time about your on a Monday night, you go a walk.
Oh, aye, my mental health walk I do on a Monday night. Aye. I've actually got one of their pens in my hand. Look.
Right,
that's my pen I'm using tonight.
Tell our audience a wee bit about that, because this really impressed me on its own. Right, this is, and it's not been mentioned yet, so I have to get this in.
It's a mental health walk that it was set up by Greater Polity Services, run by a fantastic lassie called Donna Foot, who's so active in the polity community. Just like she's one of these lassies I says, if I brought her, it would blow your mind. She's incredible. She set up this during COVID. There was it's dead upsetting to talk about, but quite a few young people took their life in Greater Pollock area. That was it was terrible. And Donna decided that she was going to walk around Pollock. We merged for a charity called Kick the Silence, just to show people that, you know, we care. You know, if you need to talk, we're not trained, but we're mammies or whatever, talk to us. And she started handing out pens and leaflets, and she asked me to join in with her. So every Monday night, that's what we do. So Greater Pollock's a big area. So 1 week we'll cover the Darnley end of Greater Pollock, and that's Hill, Priest Hill, South Park, Parkhouse. Another end we'll do the Braecraft, Lint Haw, and the Silverburn side. So we split it. It's probably maybe 4 miles each week. And we just very slowly, it's not a sprint, we take our time, we have a gab, we have a laugh, and we hone the merch out, and we just say to people, just raising awareness for doing a wee walk around the area, try to raise awareness for mental health, give them a wee pen, give them a wee leaflet, and always say to them, might not be for you, might be for somebody else, but there you go. And we've never had anybody refuse, and we've actually had quite a few people say to us, I'm glad I bumped into you tonight. We had one guy spoke to us for about half an hour that was going through a terrible time. But even if you don't that doesn't happen often. But even the fact that you're letting people know we care and we want to, you know, we'll be here next Monday. If you want to join us, meet us at Craigbank Shops, da 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 da. And these wee pens, I know it's kick the silence, see it? And then if you pull it out here, it just says on it, just all says nice things. I don't know how good this camera is, but that's basically look at my nails. No, don't look at my nails, it's terrible. Right. So that's the wee pens, and then it's got the wee leaflets, and then we'll say to them, we'll be back here next Monday. And you know what? There's 4 of us there, and we have a laugh doing it. We have such a nice time doing it, and we meet nice people doing it. And it's funny because on Monday night there, I went to give you a guy a leaflet, and he went, "You gave me one the last time." So I think I'm doing a repeat. But that's what, like I say, is we're not trained in anything. We're just women walking about letting people know that mental health matters, and if you want to talk about it, talk to us. There's numbers, there's really good numbers, people you can talk to on the leaflets. So, and I do think it's making a difference. So
aye, well, most definitely will be. I mean, if you've got people that are identifying the fact that you've seen them last week, you gave them something, you're noticed. John, is there anything you would like to add before? Because we're pretty much at the end of it for this evening.
No, I'd actually just like to say, Pauline, you've absolutely blew my mind tonight with what you're doing. Doing all the things that you're doing, keeping all the different balls in there, that's absolutely superb. And it's just, as far as I know, where I stay in Fife, there's nothing like that at all. And there's such a need. It's just great. Hopefully sometime that, as you say, it's not something we want, but hopefully at some time there'll be some people that can do something similar to what you're doing over this side of the country, because as far as I know, there's next to nothing here like it. And there's a lot of very desperate, sad people that could do with support. But you keep doing what you're doing. I think it's superb, and all credit to you. God bless you.
Aye, I think
Thank you
John's
so
just
much.
gave you your next project there, Pauline.
for sure.
Aye, moving out to Fife here, moving out of the Fife finals. Right, I'm going to ask, is there any of our audience want to ask a final question before we finish up? Right, there's no hands going up, so that's no. Right, so Pauline, I'm going to ask you to put a final message for this evening before I say good night. So on you go.
Oh, Jings. Just I'm glad to have been invited, and I'm glad that I'm able to talk to more people about what's going on. And I think my overriding message would be that there is lots of people out there that want to do good, that want to help. We just need to put the mechanisms in place for them to be able to deliver the help, because people are essentially good, but people are also struggling, and it just takes one thing for people to be plunged into despair, into poverty. And people need to realise that it could happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody. And I just would like people to be aware that there is help out there, and we need more people connecting with other people. That's it.
Absolutely. Just another wee side thought, John. Neil Hanvey's the MP at Fife Ways, you know.
That's right, yeah.
Maybe contact him to see about getting,
That's right.
getting this going at your way.
Even could get him to bite Pauline's ear and just get some information from her regarding how would somebody go about such a thing, like she could be a wealth of information for other people. It should be handy.
I'm happy to talk to anybody. Just point me in a direction. I will talk to anybody.
You're very, very good at talking. You could talk hind legs off a donkey. I mean that in the nicest sense of the word. I really do. And that's the great
Told
thing.
that before.
And that's the great thing about somebody. If you can communicate in a level that people can have empathy with, then it's half the battle. So you're a wee energizer bunny, and I mean that in the nicest sense of the word as well.
Thank you so much. I'm taking that in the way it was intended. Thank you. That's very kind.
Aye, so I'll try and sweep that up a wee bit. Right, so for Tweet Street Scotland Occupy for satirical saltire for Cinnamon Bridges, I just want to say, and I've already said thank you to Pauline, but I want to thank Pauline again for the bottom of my heart. As I say, it's folk like you that make all of these wee conversations that we have seem so important, because it's getting that what you do and try to put it out there so that we can say, listen, everything isn't shit. Look at what Pauline's doing. Look at the good side there. It's shit that we're having to do it. but look at what this lassie, as I'm going to say, look what this lassie's doing. So if Pauline can do it, maybe we can be doing a wee bit more. So for everybody at Tweet Street, it's good night for this evening, and thanks very much, Pauline Gilgallon. You are an absolute superhero. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.